Hey YouTube, Poops like here, and this is TurboFat, an open source puzzle game I'm making in Godot. The source code is linked below if you want to see how it all works. And for the past 2 months, I've been working on the credits to my game. I wanted to have a big theatrical ending with all these little scenes and fun surprises. And if you don't want that kind of stuff spoiled for you, then this might not be the video for you. It will be just 100% spoilers, sorry. But if you're interested, or if you finish the game and you want to come back to this, then let me show you what I've been doing, or what I did. So I had a lot of different ideas I wanted to cram into the ending. Before the credits play, I wanted to have a few special cutscenes where like everyone congratulates you and you come outside and everybody's waiting and they all say, "Yeah, good job." And then for the credits themselves, while they're scrolling, sort of like the ending to Disney movies, I wanted them to like get pushed aside where it's like, here's the credits, but whoa, there's a funny video playing. So I like that stuff. I wanted to have some pinups of all the different characters you ran into scrolling alongside so you can sort of like roll call out all the cool people you met. And I wanted it all to be synced with music, where special different things would happen while the credits are playing that are like lined up with the beat of the music. So I wanted there to be confetti for like the victory screen, but as an odd little detail, I have these 4 confetti cannons that fire and blast it out. And then the confetti itself is done with the Particles 2D, which does the confetti that drops from the sky. And weirdly, there is, if you look as a detail, confetti that collects on the ground below you as well, and that's done with a second Particles 2D. So I drew and animated this little gift shop scene, and it has these 2 characters in it, and I added 2 animation players to make their heads bob up and down slightly and to make them blink, and to me that's the secret to making them look more alive and not just like still images. So I started with some of the bare bones credit stuff like the title and some lines that scroll by, which you can swoosh left and right to make room for like movies to play. And when it came time to sync them with the music, I realized I've already done something very similar in Frog Finder, where I would have like a frog's dance animation that keeps in time with the music by speeding up or slowing down the animation so it stays in sync. I couldn't quite do that same approach here because there were going to be some physics objects and things that were not tied to just one animation player. But I could do something very similar by detecting whether this animation is in sync with the music, and if it's not, then I actually mess with engine.timescale, this very useful Godot property, which affects how fast your entire game runs. And this means that by like speeding that up, not only will it speed up one animation, it'll also speed up the entire game and all the physics stuff. So that works great for me. So I wanted this aha moment where the player realizes the blocks they've been playing with spell out the letters in the word TurboFat. And the way I was going to do this was to have the orb floating around, firing pieces everywhere, just suddenly fire a V piece, and it bumps into the T in the word TurboFat and changes into this big V piece that sort of looks like a T. And I was going to do that letter by letter and have them all change. So I drew all the bubbly versions of the letters first, and then I had this logic for where the orb should aim, and I did that using a line 2D. That way I could line it up in the editor. And I know like, okay, the third point in this line 2D, that's the R, and I can move it to where it looks just right. But there was one small bug, and the bug was the orb would fire out a piece every time its frame changed, and it was hard-coded where like, okay, the 153rd piece, that's the R or whatever. But sometimes the orb would like, there'd be like a lag frame or something that would make it so that the orb would like skip too many frames at once, and only one piece would be fired instead of 2 pieces, because it was like stuttering during the frame it was supposed to change. So I fixed this by having a little check which says, oh, if you're like 31 seconds into the song, you should have fired 81 pieces by now. How many have you fired? You've only fired 80. Well, then you need to catch up and we'll have you fire 2 pieces this time. And that works well and it stays in sync. So I wanted this ending animation where you and Fat Sensei are running like you usually do between levels, but instead of being alone, there's like thousands of people all cheering you on, and then they surround you and toss you in the air. And as far as how I did this, first of all, instead of having like 1,000 of these little sprites for the cheerleader guys, there's only about 100, and they get recycled by this Area 2D, which says it follows you as you run, and if it bumps into any of these crowd members, it moves them forwards. The same ones are used over and over. And then as far as the launch effect, I think this is pretty cool looking. There's a static texture which gets like shifted diagonally, and I use the same logic for Frog Finder, but here I'm animating it much, much faster. And then these particles in the back, that's like a particles feed which blasts these little visual white specks down really fast. And I thought I borrowed this from like Marvel versus Capcom or some game like that let you jump and do this, but when I looked for references, I couldn't find anything that's done it. So you'll have to tell me if you know what I stole it from, where it's from. So my initial vision of this next part was to have everyone hoist you on top of a big Matsuri float, and you're bobbing up and down and jostling left to right. Making that work in Godot 3 was actually really hard because of the combination of viewport textures and clipping rectangles and all this jank to make the characters look right. Rotating it was out of the question. I played with it for like an hour or two and was like, this is too hard. So I went with a much simpler approach of just having the characters sort of crowd surf vertically, and I think it looks still pretty great. It was just done with like a single frickin' tween. It was super easy. So next I wanted these little pinup bubbles with a character in them and like the name tag. And I'd already done this for my puzzles, so it seemed like I could just sort of borrow that asset and it'd be easy. And it immediately broke everything. It broke weird stuff, like the cutscenes I just made were now empty. There were no people in them. Where did they go? And it turns out they were still there. They were just off to the side. So what happened? Why did they move? Here's the weird bug. The cameras in my game, and actually a lot of logic, sort of was always made to focus on all the creatures in the scene tree. So now that I had like these two characters in the cutscene, but also this other character over here, the camera was trying to zoom on all three things at once. And it also affected other stuff like shadows, where it would try to cast shadows for all the characters, and now there'd be like a weird ass shadow in the middle of nowhere. So fixing this was actually really hard because I was using singletons for a lot of that stuff to say, like, give me all the creatures in the scene. Oh, bam, just hit this creature manager singleton. He'll tell you. It couldn't do that anymore. It would have to be, give me all the shadows for just this one little environment, just this little piece of my game. I just want the shadows for them. So I had to add a bunch of stuff. And overall, though, I was surprised. It only took 2 days to fix. It took 1 day to make all these things that needed to know all the creatures. Now they need to know an environment. It took about a day to hook all that stuff up, and then it took about a day to fix all the stuff I broke, because that was a big change. But after that, it all seems to be working great. So that's where we're at after January and February. We got a lot of the ending done, including like all the cutscenes that play. And then the credits scroll is there. It's all synced with the music. We got the little orb and the transmuting letters into the word turbofat. We got some of the movies that play, and the pinups are there. I want to do more with the pinups. That's left. And then I want to have like a little ending screen which says, you did it, mission complete, 95% done, Dear Force, all that stuff players like to see. And then tying it into the game. So when you finish the last level, all this logic needs to kick off. Then once you're done, it needs to like go to the end of the day. And it just needs to hook into the game elegantly. Maybe have a way to rewatch the credits or something too. Anyways, other than that, I have made a bunch of little code messes over the past 2 months, so I'm going to spend a week cleaning that stuff up, as usual. But we're looking at an October release, and I'm going to try to stick to that. So I'll see you guys at the end of March, and let's see how far we got. If you want to try the game in the meantime, it is available on itch.io. I'm not going to release what I did this month because it's not really, there's nothing to see. It's just a bunch of hidden code behind the scenes that does nothing. So if you want to try out the game anyway, it is on itch.io. It's really fun. It's got a lot of levels and cool stuff to do. So let me know what you think, and I will see you guys next month. Take it easy.